She was the woman I fought the world to win, and the same woman who made me grateful when I found her in bed with another man. Sounds insane, doesn't it? But when I opened that bedroom door and saw her tangled in the sheets with someone else, I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I smiled. I smiled because, for the first time in years, I felt free. There are some women you forget the moment they leave the room. Then there are women like her, the kind who change the temperature when they walk in. The kind who don't need to do anything special, because everything they do looks special anyway. I saw her for the first time at a wedding reception, of all places. She wasn't the bride. Just another guest, like me. But she may as well have been the only person in the entire ballroom. I was halfway into a flat conversation about the stock market with a guy I barely knew, a glass of cheap white wine sweating in my hand, when the door opened. She stepped through like she belonged to another world, tall, poised, draped in this deep sapphire blue dress that clung to her like silk on water. Her dark hair was pinned up in a loose, elegant knot, with strands falling just so. Everything about her screamed deliberate, practiced, effortless allure. She didn't look around, didn't scan the room for attention. She already had it. Every head turned. Every eye followed. Including mine. That first glance hit me like a truck. She didn't even look at me, but I was hooked, like some idiot teenager seeing a girl for the first time. I remember actually setting my drink down because my hand had started to tremble. I didn't know her name, her story, if she was taken or single or married to a mob boss, and I didn't care. I just knew I had to speak to her. Had to try. She was at the bar later that evening, talking to a guy in a tailored gray suit, the kind of man who probably owned a yacht and named it something pretentious like Perseverance. I waited until he went to the bathroom and made my move, full of the kind of confidence that only comes from desperation. Even the moon would feel underdressed standing next to you, I said. Yeah. That was my opener. I still cringe thinking about it. She looked at me, amused but unimpressed. Is that line supposed to work? It worked enough to get you to look at me, I said, grinning. That earned me a sip of wine and a slow blink. Congratulations, she murmured. You're very persistent. And that was the moment I knew it wouldn't be easy. She wasn't the kind of woman you impressed with pick-up lines or tired compliments. She was surrounded by admirers, successful men, handsome men, loud men trying to outshine each other with money, connections, or charm. She didn't need to chase anyone, because everyone came to her. She was cold, yes, but not cruel. Distant. Like something sacred that didn't care to be worshipped but accepted it anyway. And I was obsessed. I learned her name from a mutual friend. I learned where she worked, what coffee shop she visited in the mornings, and where she liked to spend her Thursday nights, a modern art gallery downtown. She once spent 20 minutes analyzing a painting that looked like someone sneezed on a canvas. I showed up. Not always obviously, never aggressively, but just enough. Close enough for her to notice, far enough for her not to be alarmed. It became a slow, painful dance. She let me orbit her world like a moon chasing a planet that was already moving on without me. She dated other men. Men who were objectively better than me on paper. I remember watching her from across the room at a gallery once, laughing with some executive from a hedge fund. Her laugh was light, genuine. It didn't belong to me, not yet. But I didn't stop. I bought her flowers, not roses, but lilies, because I'd overheard her say she thought roses were funeral flowers dressed up in romantic clichés. I learned how to make chicken tagine because I found out it was her favorite dish. I once spent $400 on a pair of vintage sunglasses she'd mentioned in passing just so I could give them to her at a friend's beach party. She smiled when she unwrapped them, the first real smile I ever got from her. And then she kissed my cheek. My cheek. You'd think I'd won the lottery. I became a constant. A dependable presence. Someone who listened. Someone who didn't ask too much, who didn't beg for her time but always offered mine. I was always there. And eventually she let her walls down. Slowly. Carefully. Like peeling off armor she wasn't sure she'd need again. It happened on a quiet evening in March. I walked her home from a fundraiser. It had rained earlier, and the sidewalk was still slick beneath our shoes. She stopped at her building, looked up at the gray sky, then looked at me. "Do you want to come up?" she asked. My heart damn near stopped. We didn't sleep together that night. We talked. We drank red wine. She let me hold her hand. In the morning, she made espresso in a little stovetop mocha pot and handed me the cup like it was a key to another life. That's what it felt like, a beginning. I thought I'd cracked the code. I thought I'd won her heart through patience, through effort, through sheer stubbornness. I thought I'd found the woman I'd spend my life with. And maybe I did. But I had no idea that life would turn into a prison I'd one day thank God for unlocking. Marriage didn't happen overnight. It took 3 years of dancing around each other, navigating her silences, her deflections, her brief flashes of affection that always disappeared too quickly. But one day she said yes. No romantic tears, no breathless moment of joy. Just a cool, measured nod of approval when I knelt down on one knee in a garden she said she liked, one she'd never returned to after that day. Still, I was ecstatic. She was mine. The prize I'd pursued through every rejection, every test of patience, every moment of self-doubt. I'd done it. I'd won the girl everyone wanted but no one could keep. At least, that's what I told myself. Our wedding was beautiful, coldly, immaculately beautiful. The kind of wedding that ends up in magazines. She made sure of that. Her dress was custom, flown in from Milan. The flowers were white peonies, her favorite, and the reception was held at a cliffside villa overlooking the water. Everything was perfect, elegant, photogenic, rehearsed. And as we posed for pictures, as she arched her back just so and smiled that faint smile that never quite reached her eyes, I remember thinking, this is it. This is my forever. I just didn't know how long forever would feel. Our first year was smooth. She settled into the role of wife like she was stepping into a costume designed just for her. She knew how to host, how to decorate, how to charm people just enough without giving anything away. At home, she kept things spotless, not warm or cozy, but clean. Precise. The meals were always plated beautifully, though the recipes rarely changed. Sex was regular enough, but passionless. Like checking a box on a weekly to-do list. I didn't question it then. I was too busy being proud. Proud that she chose me. Proud that I could afford to give her what she wanted, the clothes, the dinners, the vacations. I worked long hours, took on new clients, expanded my business with a fire that came from knowing she deserved the best. She rewarded me in her own way, with appearances. That's what I'd come to call them. Appearances. She would dress up for every dinner party, every event, every gallery opening. She knew what colors made her skin glow, what earrings caught the light just right. She walked into rooms like she owned them, and every time, I was the man by her side, the lucky bastard who somehow landed her. Men would glance at me with subtle envy. Women would tilt their heads and say things like, "She's so striking," as if I wasn't already painfully aware. And I loved it. I did. God help me, I basked in it. I remember one evening in particular. A summer party thrown by one of my wealthier clients. She wore a wine-colored gown that shimmered in the garden lights. I couldn't stop staring at her, and neither could anyone else. Her friends gathered around her, squealing at her handbag, complimenting her heels. One man, clearly tipsy, muttered loud enough for me to hear, "Hell, she'd look hot in a damn potato sack." I laughed. I laughed because I agreed. And I felt triumphant. Look what I caught, I wanted to say. Look who comes home with me every night. But slowly, so slowly I almost missed it, the shine started to dull. It wasn't her looks. No, she remained flawless. Always. It was everything beneath the surface. Conversations became sparse. I'd come home late from work, still buzzing from closing a deal or getting a new investor on board, and I tried to share it with her. But she'd be on the couch, filing her nails, a green face mask drying on her skin. "That's nice," she'd murmur, barely looking up. You work so hard. At first, I thought she was just tired. Then I thought maybe I was boring. So I tried harder. Brought her little gifts. Made dinner once in a while. Asked her questions. Real ones, about her thoughts, her dreams, her feelings. She'd smile. That same polite smile. And say something like, "I'm here, aren't I? You should be grateful." That line became her refrain. You should be grateful. As if her presence was a gift I had to earn every single day. As if she was doing me a favor just by existing beside me. Sex became routine. Sterile. She never initiated, never responded with real hunger or intimacy. She'd lay back, close her eyes, and go still. When I asked her if something was wrong, she'd say, "You got what you wanted, didn't you?" I started to notice the details. The food she made, while always plated with care, never changed. Same 3 or 4 meals, rotated with robotic precision. The house was spotless, but soulless. Everything beige and cream and symmetrical. No warmth. No personality. No joy. It was like living inside a magazine, pristine and lifeless. And yet I couldn't complain. Not publicly. Everyone saw us as the perfect couple. Friends envied us. My colleagues called her a real stunner, and joked that I must be keeping her happy in ways they couldn't afford. She played the part so well that even I started to doubt my discontent. I kept working harder. Kept convincing myself that this was what marriage looked like, a partnership of appearances, of routines, of comfort. That my restlessness was just some selfish part of me that didn't know how to be content. But late at night, lying next to her as she turned away from me, I'd stare at the ceiling and feel something gnawing at my insides. I'd married the woman of my dreams. I just hadn't realized she was incapable of loving anyone but her own reflection. The turning point wasn't a single moment. It was hundreds of tiny ones, too subtle to see when they first appeared, too painful to ignore once they'd accumulated. Looking back, I realize I didn't fall out of love with her all at once. I peeled away from it, layer by layer, like an old coat that no longer fit. Year 5 is when the illusion started to tear. Not dramatically, no screaming matches, no secret texts or lipstick on collars. Just exhaustion. Just silence. Just the slow, suffocating awareness that I was no longer living with a woman. I was living next to one. She became a stranger in familiar skin. The routine grew colder. She stopped asking about my day, not out of spite, I think, but disinterest. I'd come home, briefcase in hand, tie loosened, hoping for a smile, a touch, something soft. Instead, I'd find her in the same position every evening, legs crossed on the velvet chaise lounge, some expensive magazine in her lap, a glass of white wine sweating on the side table. Her fingers would be busy, always busy, filing her nails or scrolling through her phone, her face expressionless. Numb. If I talked, she nodded. If I vented, she'd blink slowly and say, "You'll figure it out." She rarely asked questions. She never gave advice. Just sat there, a beautiful painting hung too high on the wall to really see. Present, but unreachable. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I'd become boring. Maybe I wasn't attentive enough. So I changed my schedule. Took Fridays off just to be with her. I planned little weekend getaways. Booked couples massages. I even signed us up for a cooking class, something fun, something different. She came once. Showed up in a silk blouse and heels like she was walking into a fashion shoot, not a kitchen. Barely touched the food. Smiled thinly, posed for a picture with the instructor, then ghosted through the next class like it had never happened. Afterward, she said, "Honestly, babe, chopping onions isn't exactly my idea of fun." What was her idea of fun? New shoes. High-end spas. Shopping trips with her girlfriends. Photo shoots in hotel lobbies. Events where she could wear a gown and be photographed in it. I was the man standing beside her, holding her coat, paying the valet, capturing her angles on her phone like I was some unpaid social media manager. It sounds bitter. Maybe it is. But I didn't mind, not at first. I wanted to give her that life. I worked for it. I hustled like hell so she could have the best. I just didn't realize that's all we had left, giving. Me giving. Her taking. And it wasn't just about the things. It was the way she responded to them. You know how most people light up when they unwrap a gift? Her reaction was clinical, precise. She'd examine the label, assess the price in her head, then offer a kiss on the cheek and a murmured, "You're sweet." Then it was back to her phone, back to her mirror, back to whatever TikTok or influencer had grabbed her attention that day. I'd come to bed late sometimes, hoping she might want to talk or just be close. But she'd already be asleep, her silk robe wrapped tight, her hair covered in a scarf to preserve the curls. If I touched her, she stirred, not with warmth, but with practiced tolerance. Like I was disturbing her beauty sleep. We hadn't kissed with real passion in months. Sex had become a routine, mechanical, uninspired, always ending with her slipping away into the bathroom to exfoliate while I stared at the ceiling, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt as a bachelor. There was one moment, just one, where I tried to name what I was feeling. We were having dinner, just the two of us, in our own dining room for once. No guests. No events. Just grilled salmon, asparagus, and 2 glasses of wine. I asked her, halfway through the meal, "Do you ever feel like we're just going through the motions?" She didn't even look up from her plate. "Everyone does, eventually." "That's it?" I asked. "That's your answer?" She shrugged. "You're not unhappy, are you? You've got everything." That line struck me in a way I couldn't describe. You've got everything. She truly believed that was enough. That the house, the money, the beauty beside me, that it all added up to something resembling fulfillment. She didn't understand that love doesn't live in things. It lives in effort. In emotion. In the mundane, unglamorous intimacy of shared burdens and inside jokes and middle-of-the-night talks. But she wasn't interested in that kind of love. She wanted admiration, not connection. Adoration, not partnership. I was the frame around her painting, useful, necessary, invisible. My friends still envied me. They'd nudge me at parties and whisper, "God, man, how did you land her?" I used to laugh. Smile. Joke that it was a full-time job. But lately, I found myself growing quiet. Bitter. They didn't see the truth. They saw what I used to see, the perfection, the polish, the myth. But I was living with the reality. A reality that was slowly bleeding me dry. And the worst part? I still loved her. Or maybe I loved the idea of her, the memory of who I thought she was. But either way, something in me had started to crack. And deep down, I think I already knew, those cracks would only get wider. It started with something small. It always does. A new scent. That's what cracked the first tile on the glossy, spotless floor we'd called a marriage. I came home late from work one night, my tie half loosened, exhaustion curling around my shoulders like a wet coat. She was already dressed, tight black pants, hair in soft waves, that perfect makeup she never wore just for me anymore. And there it was, a new perfume. It wasn't her usual soft, floral notes. This was heavier. Spiced. Carnal. The kind of scent that lingered. It wasn't hers, at least not the version of her I'd known for the last 7 years. New perfume? I asked, trying to sound casual as I leaned in and kissed her cheek. She shrugged lightly. A sample from the salon. Thought I'd try something different. She turned back to the mirror. Didn't meet my eyes. Didn't ask what I thought. I stood there, something tightening in my gut, and didn't say another word. That's how it always started, not with lies but with absences. With things not said. After that night, I started seeing more. Noticed more. Her schedule shifted subtly. At first, she was out with her girlfriends once or twice a week, nothing unusual. But then it became more frequent. Later hours. Last-minute plans. Vague explanations. Maya invited me for a late dinner, she'd say, grabbing her coat at 9 p.m. Where at? I'd ask. She'd pause for half a second too long. That little rooftop lounge, you know, the one near Fifth. Funny. I didn't remember Amaya. And the lounge she mentioned had closed 6 months ago. Then there were the receipts. Literally. She'd leave her purses on the kitchen counter, and sometimes they'd spill open while I was grabbing a dish towel or cleaning up. Twice I saw bills from restaurants I'd never heard of. One had a reservation time for 10:30 p.m., 2 people. Not that it said who the other person was. Still, I wanted to believe her. God help me, I needed to. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was paranoid. I even Googled emotional detachment in long marriages. And convinced myself we were just in a phase, a rut, a valley in the endless range of married life. I thought about couples who stuck together through worse. Who forgave affairs. Who raised kids after betrayals. We didn't even have children. How could I complain? But the silence between us had grown so loud, I couldn't ignore it. Our conversations had shriveled into logistics, groceries, dry cleaning, social calendars. She never asked about my day anymore. Never touched me unless I initiated, and even then, her fingers felt like strangers. Sex was mechanical. She'd roll over afterward and grab her phone, not even glancing at me. I remember one night, a Friday, when I tried to make an effort. I brought home Thai food, her favorite. Bought that wine she used to love. Put on a playlist from our early days, songs we danced to barefoot in the living room back when things still felt alive. She came home 2 hours late. Said traffic was bad. No explanation. She kissed my cheek absently and went to wash off her makeup. We ate in near silence. She picked at her food. Said she wasn't hungry. You okay? I asked. Just tired, she muttered. Want to watch something? I thought we could. I really just want to shower and go to bed, she said, standing before I'd finished my sentence. I sat at the table, watching the steam rise from her untouched curry, and felt something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Loneliness. And that's when the thoughts began. What if it wasn't just emotional distance? What if someone else was closer? I hated myself for thinking it. For doubting her. I'd spent years defending her, even to myself. I called her private, not cold. Independent, not distant. High maintenance, not shallow. But now I was starting to see something uglier. Not in her, but in us. In the way I tiptoed around the truth. In the way she checked out emotionally but kept me on a leash of convenience. I started watching her. Nothing sinister. Just noticing. Every time she flipped her phone over when I walked into the room. Every time she got a text and smiled at it like it was some secret blooming in her palm. Every time she left the house dressed like a movie star, even for an errand. I started paying attention to her routines. Her voice when she said goodnight. Her perfume. That damn perfume. One night she came home smelling like it again, heavy and rich and masculine. Like sex and wine and secrecy. Salon again? I asked. She blinked, caught off guard for the first time. What? The perfume. Is that the same sample? Oh. She looked away. No, I bought a bottle. I said nothing. Just nodded. But inside I felt something fracture. From then on, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake wondering where she really was when she said she was getting drinks. Who she was texting when her screen dimmed. What she was thinking when she looked past me, her gaze fixed on something I couldn't see. I wasn't sure if I was losing her. Or if I already had. I used to believe suspicion was a sickness, something that grew in the minds of weak men. Men who couldn't handle independence in their wives. Men who needed to feel in control of everything. I never thought I'd be one of them. The idea of spying on my own wife used to disgust me. But love, when it starts to rot, doesn't smell bad at first. It's subtle. A change in tone. A look that lasts half a second too long. A new perfume. A lie so small you convince yourself it isn't one. You brush it off because you want to believe. Because the alternative is too humiliating to face. I didn't go looking for her secrets out of jealousy. I went looking because the silence between us had become unbearable. The coldness. The way she didn't reach for me anymore. The way she walked into a room and made it feel like I didn't exist unless she needed something. I didn't plan it. One night she left her phone on the coffee table while she stepped into the shower. Normally, she kept it glued to her hand, screen down, on silent. This time, it buzzed twice. I glanced over. No names, just a number, saved as D. No photo. I watched the screen until it went black again. I shouldn't have touched it. But I did. I told myself it would just be a glance. A single peek, just to ease my mind. Her passcode was simple, her birth date reversed. She never changed it. I suppose she didn't think she had to. The messages were sparse. Nothing overt. But it was the tone that made my blood go cold. The kind of flirty, teasing undertones you don't use with someone you're just friendly with. Still thinking about you, one message read. Her reply? Be good. I might have a window Thursday. Window. Like she was scheduling a car service. Another. Last time was dangerous. I'm still catching my breath. His reply. Let's aim for even worse next time. And then, can't wait. My mouth went dry. My hands shook. I scrolled upward, but she had deleted most of the thread, only fragments remained. Carefully selected responses. Half of a conversation, like a puzzle with the most incriminating pieces deliberately missing. I heard the water stop in the bathroom. My heart thundered in my chest. I locked the phone, placed it exactly where it had been, and leaned back against the couch. I stared at the TV, pretending to care about the news while I drowned in the silence of what I now knew. She walked into the room a few minutes later, hair wrapped in a towel, skin dewy and clean. She looked fresh. Rejuvenated. She kissed me on the cheek and walked toward the bedroom, humming softly. I didn't sleep that night. I wanted to believe there was another explanation. That D was short for Dana, some old friend from college. That last time referred to a yoga session or an intense spin class. I wanted to believe I was reading into things. Misinterpreting. Seeing shadows in a room where none existed. But the next day, I checked our shared email. She had once linked her Uber account to it. I remembered because she had trouble resetting her password and needed my help. Sure enough, there it was, a receipt from 2 nights earlier. Drop off, the Violet Bar, 10:12 p.m. No return ride logged. The bar was attached to a boutique hotel. She told me she was at dinner with Clara. I checked our credit card statement. A charge for 2 drinks and a dessert, time stamped just after the drop-off. She hadn't even bothered to use cash. I told myself I'd confront her. That I'd sit her down and ask her plainly. But every time I looked at her, I lost the nerve. Because what would she say? She'd lie. Of course she would. She'd turn it on me. Accuse me of being controlling. Of not trusting her. Of being the problem. So instead I watched. I watched the way she touched her phone when it buzzed. The way she smiled at the screen like she'd been given a secret. The way she slipped her shoes on quietly before leaving the house late at night, saying she needed to clear her head. The worst part wasn't even the suspicion. It was the knowing. I was certain. I didn't need to catch her in the act. I already had the evidence. I had the late-night rideshares, the flirty messages, the empty bed and the emptier expressions. I had the truth. But I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Not in the way people expect. I wasn't screaming or punching walls or plotting revenge. I was sad. Crushed. Like I'd been handed a future soaked in ink and lies. I started staying late at work. Not because I had anything urgent to do, but because I couldn't stand being home. I didn't want to sit across from her at dinner, watching her pick at food she didn't taste while texting someone she did. One evening, I left work early. No reason. Just a whim. Something inside me said, "Go home." No. Her car wasn't in the driveway. I parked around the corner. Waited. 20 minutes later, a lift pulled up. She stepped out. Hair tousled. Lipstick smudged. She looked around before walking up the steps and unlocking the door. She didn't know I saw. And I said nothing. That night she curled up in bed beside me and whispered, "I missed you today." I closed my eyes and lied through my teeth. "I miss you too." By the 6th year of our marriage, I had become a ghost in my own life. Not dead. Not gone. Just invisible. I went through the motions like a man playing a version of himself he no longer recognized. Wake up. Smile. Go to work. Pay the bills. Listen to her stories about her new hairstylist, her new boutique find, her latest spa obsession. Pretend to laugh. Pretend to care. Pretend that everything wasn't slowly unraveling under the surface. I knew. Deep down, I already knew. And once you know, you stop living with hope. You start living with strategy. After I read the messages on her phone, the ones she hadn't fully scrubbed, and saw the Lyft receipts, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her with accusations she could deny. I wasn't going to beg for explanations I'd never believe. I wanted clarity. Proof. Something that didn't leave room for doubt. Something that would make it real. That's the thing about betrayal. It's not the act that breaks you. It's the gaslighting. The way they make you question your own instincts. The way they smile with lipstick still fresh from someone else's lips and say, "You're imagining things." I needed to remove imagination from the equation. Then fate handed me the perfect opportunity. It started with a funeral. My business partner's mother passed away the same week I was scheduled to leave for a 3-day work conference in Arizona. It was a trip I told my wife about weeks in advance. She'd barely reacted, as usual. Just a nod. A mumbled, "Travel safe." But when the conference got cancelled at the last minute, I didn't tell her. I packed my suitcase anyway. Left the itinerary on the kitchen counter like always. Kissed her on the cheek the morning of, told her I'd text from the airport, and walked out the door. She waved goodbye from the bedroom, half buried under a blanket, scrolling her phone. Instead of heading to the airport, I drove 10 minutes away and checked into a quiet, business-grade hotel under my middle name. I didn't unpack. I didn't sleep. I spent most of the day staring at the wall and waiting, for what, I wasn't entirely sure. Maybe for the guilt to show up. Maybe for the strength to walk away from her without needing the moment of confirmation I had been chasing for weeks. But it never came. So I made my move. The next morning, I checked out and drove back to our apartment. I parked 3 blocks down, left the engine off, and walked the rest of the way. I didn't rush. My hands didn't shake. I felt calm, eerily so. Like the moment before a car crash, where your mind slows down and your body tightens and everything inside you braces for impact. The sun was just beginning to warm the pavement. The street was quiet. A few joggers passed by, oblivious. The sky was cloudless, that soft kind of blue that would have made me feel grateful in another life. But not this one. Not now. I reached the door and unlocked it slowly. No sound from inside. No movement. Just music, low, rhythmic, pulsing from the hallway speakers. Some kind of ambient R&B beat with a slow grind beneath it. I stepped in and closed the door behind me. Her heels were in the hallway, the red ones. The pair she only wore when she wanted to be noticed. Her coat was flung carelessly over the banister. The perfume in the air was thick and unfamiliar. Sharp. Sexual. It smelled like everything she'd stopped being around me. And then I heard it, laughter. Soft. Intimate. Followed by the unmistakable creak of our bed frame. I should have exploded. I should have thrown open the door and screamed. But I didn't. I walked slowly to the bedroom. I didn't rush. I didn't even hesitate. I opened the door like I had 100 times before, like I was just coming home from work or bringing her coffee on a lazy Sunday. There she was. On the bed. Our bed. bent forward, laughing, tangled in the sheets with a man I had never seen in my life. He was older, balding, heavy. The kind of man I never would have suspected. Not handsome. Not charming. Just there. She had been with him. While I worked 12-hour days, paid for her lifestyle, cooked dinner, folded laundry, tried to pretend we still had something real, she had been in my bed with him. They didn't notice me at first. It was surreal, watching them from the doorway like I wasn't even real. Then she turned. Her expression froze. "Wait," she started. I said nothing. Her face contorted. Panic. Shame. Her voice trembled. I didn't think you were." Still nothing. He scrambled for his pants, stammering apologies to no one in particular. She reached for the sheet, covering herself like it mattered now. I walked past them both. Calmly. Opened the closet. Pulled out a clean suit. Set my old one aside. Got dressed in silence while they fumbled and whispered behind me. She tried again. "It's not what it looks like." I buttoned my shirt. "You weren't supposed to be back until..." I zipped my bag. Finally, I turned to her. She stood there half-dressed, flushed and trembling, arms crossed over herself like a teenager caught sneaking in after curfew. I looked her in the eyes. For a long time. Then I smiled. Not out of joy. Not out of bitterness. Out of relief. Because it was done. I stayed away for 2 days after I caught them. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't respond to the frantic texts or voicemails that came pouring in like floodwater through a broken dam. 22 missed calls the first night. 35 by the second afternoon. Her messages blurred together. Apologies, pleas, denials, bargaining, threats of self-blame, promises of change. I didn't listen to most of them. I didn't need to. The words were predictable, as empty as the vows she'd broken the moment she let that man touch her in our bed. I stayed with my business partner while we arranged his mother's funeral. That irony wasn't lost on me, one man burying his mother while I silently grieved the death of my marriage. I helped him organize the memorial. Sat with his family. Talked about love and loss and legacy. All the while, the image of her face when I walked into that bedroom played on a loop in my mind, eyes wide, skin pale, mouth opening like she was about to scream or confess or beg. When I returned home, the apartment was spotless. Cleaner than it had been in months. Candles lit. Curtains drawn. The soft scent of vanilla in the air. She was in the living room, filing her nails like nothing had happened, like I hadn't caught her committing the most intimate betrayal imaginable 2 days earlier. I didn't say a word. I walked to the bedroom, pulled out a suitcase, and started packing her things. Methodically. Shirt by shirt. Dress by dress. Folding nothing. Just tossing it all in like trash. That's when she snapped out of her silence. "Wait, what are you doing?" she asked, rising to her feet, the nail file clattering onto the glass coffee table. I didn't answer. "Are you serious right now?" she said, her voice rising with each word. "You come home after disappearing for 2 days and don't even talk to me? You don't even give me a chance to explain?" I zipped the suitcase and reached for another. "Stop it!" she shouted, rushing toward me. She grabbed the edge of the bag. "You can't just throw me out. We're married!" I finally looked at her. Married. That word used to mean something. It used to feel sacred. Now it sounded like a bad joke. "Get out of my way," I said. "No," she said, her voice cracking. "You're not even going to let me talk? After everything we've been through? After everything I've given you?" I laughed then. A sharp, bitter sound that startled even me. "Everything you've given me?" I said, stepping forward. "You mean the years of silence? The disinterest? The way you made me feel like a guest in my own life? You mean the way you turned our marriage into a damn photo op while you chased attention from other men?" She flinched. I kept going. "You cheated on me. In our bed. While I was out working, supporting you, building the life you flaunted like a trophy on Instagram. And you didn't just betray me, You invited me to walk in on it. You were so comfortable, so confident that I'd never catch you, you didn't even lock the damn door. Her face crumpled, but I didn't stop. I was a prop to you. A status symbol. Something to drape your dresses and handbags over so your friends could say wow and your parents could brag. But I was never enough, was I? You wanted someone to worship you, not love you. You didn't want a husband. You wanted an audience. She started to cry. Quiet at first. Then louder. Ugly. Mouth open, hands clutching her stomach like the grief was physical. I'm sorry. She choked. I made a mistake. I was stupid. I didn't think you. You didn't think I'd come home early. That's what you didn't think. She sank to the floor. I don't even know why I did it. She sobbed. He doesn't mean anything to me. I swear. It wasn't love. It was just a distraction. I felt empty. I felt alone. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore. You felt alone? I snapped. You ignored me for years. You shut me out. Every conversation was about your shoes or your friends, or your diet. I tried. God, I tried to connect with you. To be there for you. But you were never really with me. You were always somewhere else. She curled in on herself, knees to her chest, mascara bleeding down her face. I'm broken, she whispered. I don't know what's wrong with me. I stood over her for a long time. Not angry anymore. Not even disappointed. Just numb. Hollowed out by the weight of everything she'd taken from me, not just trust, but time. Years. The man I used to be. The man who believed in forever. I don't care what's wrong with you, I said coldly. I just want you out. She begged then. Desperate, humiliating sobs. She promised therapy. Promised to change. Said she'd do anything. But I was done believing her. The affair hadn't ruined us, it had revealed us. Revealed the truth I'd been avoiding for too long. We were never in love. We were in performance. And the curtain had finally come down. She moved out the next day. Not because she wanted to, because I gave her no choice. I'd packed everything. Set her suitcases by the door. I told her I'd already spoken to a lawyer. That divorce papers would follow. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I think that's what scared her the most, the calm. The silence. The way I moved through the room like she didn't matter anymore. She stood by the doorway for a long time that morning, looking around the apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. Her eyes landed on the framed photos we never took down, our wedding, our trip to Paris, her posing at the beach with my arm around her waist. She reached toward one, then pulled her hand back like it burned. I don't have anywhere to go, she said. Your parents' place still exists, I replied. Or his. Her face twisted. It wasn't like that. I didn't respond. I held the door open. She walked out. I didn't ask where she went. I didn't care. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It wasn't relief, not yet. It was eerie. Every corner of the apartment echoed. The sound of her heels, her voice drifting in from the other room, the soft click of her coffee mug on the counter, all of it was gone. Replaced by a vacuum. And in that vacuum, everything I'd buried for the last several years came rushing to the surface. Grief doesn't come in the way you expect when it follows betrayal. It isn't loud. It doesn't knock you over in a single blow. It seeps in through the cracks, slow and steady. It creeps into the routines you used to share, the moments that feel strangely hollow without someone to pretend next to. I still cooked dinner the first few nights. Still set out 2 plates. Still caught myself looking up, waiting to hear the key in the lock, forgetting for a moment that I was alone now. I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of her. The version I created in my head when I fell in love with a woman who never really existed. The lawyer was efficient, thankfully. I'd hired someone who specialized in discrete separations. He took my statement. Asked for financial records. Helped me file the papers. I checked off the irreconcilable differences. Box on the form with a pen that shook only once. Not out of doubt. Just out of exhaustion. We had no children. No shared businesses. The apartment lease was in my name. Financially, the divorce would be clean. Emotionally? That was a different story. Mutual friends began to reach out. Not to support me, not really. To ask questions. To fish for gossip. They wanted to know what happened. Why she had moved out. If the rumors were true. I ignored most of them. But word got out eventually. She must have told someone, maybe in a moment of panic or guilt. And when it did, people suddenly changed how they spoke to me. Their voices softened. They offered condolences like I'd just lost a loved one. I had no idea. One of her friends whispered during a run-in at a cafe. "I thought you two were solid," another said. "She always looked so happy." That was the thing, wasn't it? She looked happy. That was her whole game. Appearances over everything. So long as the world believed we were perfect, the rot behind the curtain didn't matter. But it mattered to me. What stung the most wasn't the sex. Not even the lies. It was the time. 7 years. 7 years of working, building, sacrificing. 7 years of standing by someone who never once turned toward me with the same fire I gave her. I remembered birthdays she forgot. I brought flowers she barely noticed. I planned vacations she criticized. I held her when she cried about meaningless things, only to be dismissed when I needed her arms around me. I kept journals during that time. I opened one the night after she left. Read through the entries. So many pages filled with questions I never asked her. Fears I swallowed. Disappointments I brushed aside to keep the peace. She didn't kiss me goodnight again. "She's been texting someone late," said it was a client, but the way she smiled. I feel like I'm losing her, but I don't know if I ever really had her. I put the journal away and sat in the dark. No music. No distractions. Just me and the reality I had ignored for far too long. And then, out of nowhere, I laughed. A short, broken laugh that sounded closer to a sob. Because it finally hit me, I had spent the better part of a decade building a life with a stranger. A mirage. A woman who let me pour myself into her, only to offer a hollow echo in return. And the worst part? I wasn't even angry anymore. I was tired. Tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. Tired of carrying someone else's weight, someone else's dreams, someone else's coldness. She had taken everything warm in me and chilled it to ice. But the strange thing about rock bottom? There's nothing left to lose. And that's where rebuilding begins. I didn't expect the last conversation. 2 weeks after she left, she showed up at my door. I opened it, and there she was, standing in the same doorway she'd once walked through in a wedding dress. Only this time, she wore sweatpants, no makeup, and her hair pulled back like she'd stopped trying to impress the world. She held a letter in her hands. 32 pages, handwritten. She didn't ask to come in. She just stood there, eyes bloodshot, breathing like she'd just run a mile, and said, "This is everything I never said." I didn't take it from her. Not right away. "What do you want me to do with it?" I asked. She looked down at the floor. "Whatever you need to do." I said nothing. After a long silence, she placed the letter on the porch railing, backed away, and walked down the steps without another word. I watched her go. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel forgiveness either. Just a strange, quiet detachment, like watching someone else's movie end. I didn't read the letter right away. It sat on the coffee table for 2 more days. I think I was afraid it would suck me back into something I'd finally climbed out of. But curiosity won out. One night, after a glass of wine and too many unanswered texts from friends who still didn't know what to say, I opened it. Her handwriting was neat. Careful. The first few pages were apologies. Not excuses, real apologies. She admitted everything. That it wasn't just one man. That it hadn't been recent. That she started emotionally checking out years ago and didn't know how to climb back in. That she hated herself for it. She told me I was too good to her. That she didn't deserve the effort I gave. That she resented my stability because it reminded her of everything she wasn't. She confessed that sometimes, when I looked at her like she was the only woman in the world, it made her feel guilty, because she knew she wasn't. The later pages got messier. She talked about her own self-hatred, how her beauty had always been her armor, how it made people give her attention she didn't earn and love she didn't know how to return. She said she never learned how to be vulnerable, only how to perform. How to dress the part, smile for the camera, but never show what was underneath. She ended with something I didn't expect. She thanked me. Not for forgiving her, she didn't ask for that, but for being the first man to ever see her beyond the surface. For trying. For staying longer than she deserved. For giving her a version of life she didn't know how to hold. And then she wrote, "If you hate me forever, I'll understand. But I hope one day, when enough time has passed, you'll think of me not just as the woman who betrayed you, but as the woman who finally helped you see you deserved more." I folded the letter. I didn't cry. I didn't burn it. I didn't reread it. I just set it aside and got back to living. That was the final gift of betrayal, clarity. Without her there, my life took on new shape. Small things at first. I bought a new bed. Got rid of the one we'd shared, stripped it down to the frame and gave it away. It was symbolic, maybe even dramatic, but I needed it gone. I repainted the living room. Removed every framed photo of us, not out of spite, but because they were lies. I started cooking again. For real, not just survival. I bought cookbooks. Burned a few things. Laughed at myself. It felt good. Human. I hadn't felt human in years. I joined a gym. Not to reinvent myself, not for revenge. Just because I needed to feel strong again, inside and out. I picked up the guitar I hadn't touched in almost a decade. I played badly. I didn't care. I went out with friends, the ones who didn't tiptoe around me like I was a broken vase. The ones who didn't ask too many questions but also didn't let me pretend I was fine when I wasn't. We had drinks. We talked about nothing and everything. I laughed again, real, deep laughter that felt like exhaling a breath I'd been holding for years. I still had dark days. Days when I'd see a couple holding hands and feel something twist in my chest. Days when I'd wake up and instinctively reach for someone who wasn't there. Days when I wondered how I'd let myself be fooled for so long. But those days grew fewer. Softer. She never tried to come back. Never pushed. Maybe she knew better. Maybe she was busy rebuilding her own wreckage. And me? I wasn't trying to become a better man for someone else. I wasn't preparing to love again. I wasn't looking for closure. I was just breathing. Just being. One morning, about 6 months later, I stood on the balcony with a cup of coffee in my hand, watching the sun rise over the city skyline. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of her absence. I felt light. Not happy necessarily, but free. And that was enough.